Hello and welcome back to Fill Zone, and welcome to part 18 of Learning Piece by Piece, the complete beginner's guide to working in Motion 5. And if you are brand new to the channel, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click that bell so you'll be updated when future videos are uploaded. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the overshoot behavior. And the overshoot behavior will just basically produce a kind of bouncy or springy effect at the end of your animation. So let's jump in and have a look what it does. Well, you can see I've got a pinky background, gradient background with a pink circle on the top. So we're going to animate with the overshoot on scale. So we're going to go and find scale, and we're going to click the down arrow, select add parameter behavior overshoot. We're going to move forward 30 frames, and then we're going to trim by pressing O to set its out point. So when I play that back, nothing actually happens. And again, that's because I haven't given it anything to do. So you'll see in the control panel, we've got a lot of values here we can play with: a start and an end value, a ramp duration, cycles. Now I want the end value to stay as it is, so I'll leave that be. If I go back to scale, you'll see it's set to 100 there and to 0 there. So to get it to disappear, I'm going to need to set this to -100. And there it is, it's gone. And now when I play it back, you'll see it comes in and bounces just a little bit at the end. A little springy, and that's a feature of the ramp duration. Now the bigger that value, the less you're going to have of the animation attributed to the bouncing. So we lower that a little bit, and now you can see we've got a little more bounce, a little more spring at the end. The cycles, there's the number of times it bounces, and the more you've got, the quicker it's going to bounce. So if we set that to 2, now you'll see the bouncing's a lot slower. We'll leave it at 3. And then finally we've got this acceleration. So let's open our keyframe editor, and you can see that it's very linear. The movement in is very linear. Well, now if I up the acceleration to 100 and we play that through, you can see now that we have much more of a curved interpolation, and that means it's very similar to the ease both that we found when we were keyframing. So it gives it a smoother kind of movement in, and that's really what the overshoot does. It creates that springy movement. I've got a rectangle, a square here, which I'm going to duplicate. And then I'll zoom in, and I'm going to put one of these squares on top of the other. So we'll just grab the second square and we'll move it up so it's sitting on top. Something about like that. No, not quite. We'll just drag it down a bit. I'm not being too accurate here. It's just a demo. So now it's sitting on top, and we're going to go back to fit. And now what I want to do is adjust its anchor point, because I'm going to rotate it on the X value. So we'll set the anchor point to the bottom, click back to transform, and we'll go to our rotation, and we'll keyframe the rotation, and we'll make the first frame 90 degrees. Then we'll move forward 5 frames, and we'll set that back to 0. Now what we've got is it kind of springs open, but it's not springing as much as I want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the last frame, click add parameter behavior overshoot. I'm going to trim it at the 6th frame, move forward 20 frames and trim its out point. We'll set the start value to 40, the ramp duration to 20, and now we've got that little vibration at the end as it opens, which gives it a little more of a faster, quicker effect. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to change the color of the upper rectangle so it's not the same color. It looks like it might have a shadow on the underneath. And then we have that group down. So we'll close that group. And we'll add a new group, and we'll go to the library, and under content in the library, I found this little flower. I'm going to drag that into the new group. Just position it so I can see it. And then to that, I'm going to add a stem. So I'll grab my Bezier tool and we're just going to draw in a little stem for the flower. We'll hit return, go to the inspector, take out the fill, set the width to 16, and then we'll color it green, and we'll just darken that green down a little bit. Okay, so we have a flower and a stem now, and we need to find out the point where we want it to come in, and probably around about 8 frames where we want the flower to appear. Somewhere about there, we'll go to group and hit I on the keyboard to set the group's in point. Okay, so what we're going to do is, because we want to scale it on Y, we're going to move the anchor point down again. So we'll move the anchor point right down to the bottom. We'll put the flower in front of the stem, and then we'll move the entire group up to where we want it to appear. Just a little bit more, somewhere about there. Okay, so let's animate it now, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to scale on Y. Keyframe at the first frame, at the 8th frame, and reduce that to 0. Move forward five frames and we'll set it back to 100. And that's it. We've kind of animated it and it pops out after the lid opens. But we're going to give it a little bit of an overshoot, and so we'll click Overshoot, trim it to its in point, and then 20 frames for its out point. We'll set the start value to 50, the ramp duration to 15, and we'll leave the rest as it is. And now we've got a little springy jack-in-the-box type flower popping out, which the overshoot is a very simple behavior and can even be applied to text. If you want to have a springy text animation, again, adjust the anchor point, because again, we're going to scale it on Y. We'll set the first frame to 0, keyframe it, move forward 10 frames, and set it to 115. Okay, so now we have our text scaling in up to 115%. Find the last frame of the animation, add parameter behavior overshoot, and we'll set the in point, move forward 20 frames, O on the keyboard to set its out point. We'll set the start value to 50, the ramp duration to 5, and we'll leave the rest as it is. And now we've got this little bouncy text going on, and there are other parameters you can play with. For example, you could create this one, which is just by putting an overshoot on the shear on the X position, and for that one I set the start value to 40, ramp duration to 5, side equals 3, and that creates that little, quite effective really, little bouncy motion as it comes in. Okay, and finally, how did we make the stars at the beginning? Well, that's just one little shape, or two little shapes with one behavior duplicated over and over again. We had the star, we set the start value to 100, the ramp duration to 10, and that created, to minus 100, and that created that little effect. Now all we're going to do is duplicate it, and we're going to duplicate it and change the color. And then we go to properties, scale. Well, first we'll position it. So we'll set so at the 21st frame, we'll set the yellow star to come in. And then we'll set the scale to 130. Okay, so now we've got 2. And now what we're going to do is duplicate it again. And we'll go to Properties, and we'll set the scale this time to 160. Go to Shape and change the color. This time we'll make it blue. And we'll move it forward to the 41st frame. So the blue can begin at the 41st frame. Okay. Duplicate it again. Move it to the 61st frame. And we'll make this one green. We'll go to Properties and we'll set the scale of this one to 190. So we have four stars of different sizes, and all that's done is produce that effect. Now what we need to do is find the end of the last overshoot, and then we're going to go and press O on the keyboard for all the elements to set their out point, so that after 81 frames they disappear. And that's that group finished. Very simple little animation. Then what we're going to do is duplicate. Funnily enough, we're going to duplicate that group, and we'll call this one Stars 2. And we will move Stars 2 forward 11 frames. So it's going to start 10 frames after the first one. So just drag that group over till it's on the 11th frame. Then we'll open up the group, and we're just going to change the colors now. So we'll make the first one green, we'll make the second one blue. You can change to whatever colors you like. It really doesn't matter. Just make the colors a little bit different. Okay, and that's creating this really nice little animation already. We'll go to the end of that animation, and then we'll duplicate the first one. And we'll call this Stars 3. And then we will move this forward to the 21st frame, 10 frames after the second one. We now need to find the point where we want to start animating the stars out. And having found that, we'll move forward 30 frames. Press O on the keyboard to set the group endpoint. Let's move back to where we want to animate it out, open up the group, and we'll start with the green star. So we'll go to Properties, keyframe on scale, move forward 10 frames, and then drag the green star out. Then we'll go back 5 frames, keyframe the blue star, move forward 10 frames, and drag the blue star out. Go back 5 frames, keyframe the yellow, forward 10 frames, and then drag the yellow out on the scale. Back 5 frames, keyframe the red, move forward 10 frames, and drag the red circle out of the picture. And that's pretty much it. It's done. Producing a very nice little effect. And we just created exactly the same thing with a circle, and then we lined up the circles in exactly the same way as we did with the star. We set the first circle to come in as the red triangle was coming out, and moved the second group up 10 frames and the third group up 10 frames. We did exactly the same to animate out the circle, and then finally that left us with this nice little bouncy effect, which is very, very simple to create and really only involved one behavior. The overshoot behavior, very simple to use and can be quite effective to create a very nice bouncy, springy effect at the end of your animation. And that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, give us a big thumbs up. That really encourages me. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be updated when future videos are uploaded. And all that remains to be said now is see you in the next video.